Imagine an athlete who, barely moves.
Right.
Someone who touches the ball maybe fewer than 20 times a game and completely refuses to help on defense.
Just does no defensive work at all.
Exactly. But somehow this player is the absolute deadliest weapon at the 2026 World Cup.
It's wild.
It really is. I mean, how does a 41-year-old completely dominate a young man's game by doing, well, almost nothing?
Yeah, it sounds totally impossible on its face, but it is actually the ultimate puzzle of modern sports science and tactical engineering.
Right.
To solve it, you have to fundamentally change what you are looking for when you watch a match. You have to, stop looking at the ball and start looking at the geometry of the pitch.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We are unpacking a truly incredible piece of analysis today. It's titled The Ronaldo Matrix, Portugal's Tactical Evolution in 2026.
Such a good breakdown.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Ah.
But before we get into the mechanics of this, I need you, the listener, to do something genuinely difficult.
Oh, yeah, the unlearning part.
Exactly. I need you to completely forget the player from 2016. Erase that mental image of the dynamic winger cutting inside from the left flank with raw pace.
Right, the endless stepovers.
Yeah, the 50-yard explosive sprints down the touchline. We have to strip all of that away, just totally discard that nostalgia so we can understand Roberto Martinez's granular tactical blueprint for Cristiano Ronaldo in 2026.
Because trying to analyze his 2026 game through that 2016 lens is just, it's the quickest way to miss the absolute genius of what is happening.
Absolutely.
To understand his current unprecedented dominance at this age, fresh off back-to-back golden boots and being the global highest goal scorer, we have to look at his fundamental positional shift.
Right.
We are talking about the evolution from a dynamic roaming winger into a hyper-specialized, completely stationary anchor.
So let's dive right into the deep end of that shift. The text highlights an incredible transition from his historical role into what the analysts are calling a pure nine.
A very strict pure nine.
Yeah. He is no longer starting out wide and drifting in. He's not dropping into the midfield to act as a playmaker. His positioning in 2026 is rigidly, strictly internal.
Yeah, he is operating almost exclusively between the width of the goalposts.
Right.
Which is fascinating because the traditional expectation of a modern forward, especially in the high-pressing systems we see today, it revolves around constant motion.
Right. Managers want their strikers dropping deep to link up play.
Exactly. Drifting wide to overload the flanks, just exhausting themselves to create numerical advantages. But the source material points out that he has completely abandoned that philosophy.
He's throwing it out the window.
Totally. He has shifted to a purely internal positioning strategy. He's living almost entirely within the opposition's penalty box. And the success of this shift is rooted in a concept the analysts call deceptive economy.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the text talks about economy of movement, but I think we can make this more tangible for you listening.
Sure.
Think about a master sniper waiting for hours for a single perfect shot.
I like that.
Right. Rather than a machine gunner just, spraying the field, the machine gunner expends a massive amount of energy and ammunition trying to blanket an area. It creates a ton of noise, a ton of motion.
Lots of activity, low precision.
Exactly. But the sniper uses almost zero energy until the exact microsecond the target is perfectly aligned.
Right.
So the economy of movement is deceptive because to the untrained eye, stillness just looks like inactivity. You think he's not doing anything. But in reality, it's calculated preparation.
That is a perfect analogy. And the numbers on that are actually staggering when you look at the source material. The data entirely backs up that sniper methodology.
Yeah, the numbers blew my mind.
They're crazy. The text introduces a truly striking statistical benchmark for this deceptive economy. They call that the 20-touch rule.
The 20-touch rule, right.
In this 2026 system, he will very often touch the ball fewer than 20 times in an entire 90-minute match.
Hold on, I'm struggling with the math here. You're telling me a player who touches the ball 18 times in 90 minutes is somehow, more dangerous?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
But if my star player is that invisible, I'm just assuming the defense has him completely locked down. I mean, how is he not just a passenger in this game?
It's a fair question.
Right. If he's barely touching the ball, doesn't that mean he is inherently isolated or out of the flow of the game?
And that is the beautiful paradox of the pure nine in this specific system. Touching the ball less actually makes him a greater threat.
How so?
Because where those touches are happening and what his physical presence does when he doesn't have the ball. Let's look at the critical second half of that statistic.
Okay.
A staggering 80% of those minimal touches occur strictly inside the opposition's penalty box.
Wow. 80%.
Yeah. He isn't wasting energy controlling the ball 50 yards from goal. Every single interaction he has with the ball is concentrated in the most lethal zone on the pitch.
And the proof of concept for this entire philosophy actually came from his time in the Saudi Pro League, right?
Yes, exactly.
The document dedicates a massive section to what it calls the Saudi League Blueprint. It outlines how his historic run there, which resulted in a league title and absolute global goal-scoring supremacy, served as a laboratory for this.
It was a massive testing ground.
Right. It served as a laboratory for this very specific mathematical truth. It proved that if you supply a stationary anchor with highly efficient crosses and cutbacks, the conversion rate is mathematically the highest on Earth.
It's basically a solved equation at this point.
Yeah.
It really was a proving ground. The Saudi League data showed Roberto Martinez that asking a 41-year-old to run the channels or press the goalkeeper is just a massive waste of physiological resources.
Oh, really?
The blueprint proved that you don't need your striker to build the play if they are flawless at finishing the play.
Right. But I want to go back to my earlier question, because the text makes a point that his stillness is actually an offensive weapon in itself.
Yes, it is.
Even when he isn't touching the ball, he isn't isolated. He is structurally dismantling the defense.
That is exactly the point. By staying rigidly central, high up the pitch, and refusing to drop deep to chase the ball, he acts as a literal anchor.
Okay.
He physically pins the opposition's center backs deep in their own territory. Think about the dilemma for a defender here.
Right. Put yourself in their boots.
They cannot push up to support their midfield, and they cannot drift wide to help their fullbacks. Because the absolute moment they leave him alone centrally, he will score.
Right. Because of that sniper efficiency.
Exactly. So by dragging those center backs out of position and occupying them completely with his sheer presence, he directly creates massive empty lanes on the flanks and in the half spaces.
Wait, you mentioned half spaces. For those of us who don't spend our weekends looking at tactical whiteboards, what exact real estate on the pitch are we talking about here, and why is it so lethal?
Yeah, that is a crucial concept for understanding this blueprint. Imagine dividing the football pitch lengthwise into 5 vertical columns.
Okay, 5 columns.
You have the 2 wide channels on the wings, and you have the center channel right down the middle.
Got it.
The half spaces are the 2 lanes sandwiched between the wings and the center.
Okay.
They are incredibly dangerous zones because they force defenders to make a choice. If an attacker has the ball in the half space, who steps up to challenge them?
Right. Is it the center back or the fullback?
Exactly. The center back or the fullback. It causes massive confusion in the defensive line.
I see. So if Ronaldo is standing dead center, acting as a wedge, he is absolutely pinning those center backs.
Yes.
They cannot leave him, which means the center backs can't step out into the half spaces to challenge anyone.
Precisely. And who does Portugal have operating in those newly vacated half spaces?
Oh, wow.
They have incredibly dangerous inverted wingers.
Let me stop you there again, because inverted wingers is another one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot. We need to make sure we are painting a clear picture for the listener.
Absolutely. Let's break it down.
A traditional winger, say a right-footed player on the right side of the pitch, wants to run down the sideline and cross the ball into the box. But an inverted winger is the opposite. It's a left-footed player on the right side. They don't want to run down the sideline.
No, they want to cut inside.
Yeah, they want to cut inside directly into that half space we just talked about so they can shoot with their stronger foot.
That is exactly how the trap works. So connect those 2 concepts. Even when he touches the ball 0 times in a sequence, his rigid central positioning ties up the center backs.
Right.
Which leaves the half spaces wide open for Portugal's inverted wingers to cut inside and shoot or deliver a devastating pass.
Wow.
His immobility is literally the structural key that unlocks the space for his teammates.
Okay, so being a stationary anchor creates the lanes for the rest of the team. We've established his overarching positional strategy.
Yeah.
But to actually score those back-to-back Golden Boot volumes of goals himself, with such a limited number of touches, his movement inside that 18-yard box has to be mathematically flawless.
It has to be perfect.
Because you can't just stand completely still like a statue and expect the ball to magically bounce off your head into the net. This brings us down to the microscopic level, what the text calls the granular physics of his box movements.
And this is where we see the cognitive evolution of the player peaking. Having established that his overarching positioning is strictly internal, we have to zoom in. We
Okay.
have to look at how he moves within that highly confined, heavily guarded, incredibly chaotic space of the penalty box.
Right. It's a war zone in there.
It is. And in 2026, his danger inside the 18-yard box is entirely cognitive. It is a game of outthinking rather than outrunning the defenders.
The document highlights one specific mechanical movement that is the absolute centerpiece of this cognitive warfare. They call it blindside drifting.
Yes. Blindside drifting.
The text gives us a step-by-step breakdown of the physics of how this works, and it is fascinating. Let's walk through it.
Sure.
Step 1 is the setup. He positions himself specifically on the blind side of the furthest center back.
The mechanics of that setup are actually ruthless when you think about human biology.
Really? How so?
Well, if the ball is out on the right wing, the center back in the box has to turn their head to the right to watch the play develop.
Okay, naturally.
So he deliberately positions himself behind that defender's left shoulder. He is actively exploiting the limits of human peripheral vision.
Oh, wow.
The defender simply cannot look at the ball out on the wing and look at the striker behind them at the exact same time. It's biologically impossible.
It's like driving a car on the highway and checking your blind spot before changing lanes.
Exactly.
The absolute moment you turn your head over your shoulder to check the blind spot, you physically cannot see what the car directly in front of you is doing.
Right.
He essentially lives in that blind spot. He forces the defender to check the rear view mirror, and the second they do, he makes his move. Which brings us to step 2, the trigger.
Right. The trigger is key.
Because he doesn't just run around in the blind spot aimlessly. He waits for the exact split-second moment the winger out wide opens their hips and prepares to cross the ball.
The timing is everything. And that leads to step 3, which is the specific execution of the movement.
Okay, what does he do?
Just as the winger is about to deliver the cross, he makes a sudden, explosive two-step decoy run forward, darting toward the goal line.
Okay.
But then, instantaneously, he slams on the brakes and drops backward into the empty space he just vacated.
And the defender bites on that initial two-step decoy run every single time.
Almost involuntary.
Really?
Yeah. What's fascinating here is the complete cognitive breakdown of that defender in real time.
Break that down for me.
Well, when they see that sudden flash of movement in their peripheral vision, knowing it is the greatest goal scorer in history darting toward the 6-yard box, their instinct just takes over.
Oh, right.
Their years of fundamental defensive training screams at them to track that run. They immediately take a heavy step forward to follow him and cut off the angle.
Yeah, you have to.
But in that crucial fraction of a second, as they shift their body weight forward, they completely lose visual contact. He has already bounced backward into the pocket of space they just left completely unprotected.
It is literally the football equivalent of a master magician's misdirection.
Exactly.
You force the audience, in this case an elite center back, to look at the flashy hand, the sudden decoy run. So they're completely blind to where the actual trick is happening.
Right.
You manipulate their attention and their physical momentum to create the exact pocket of space you need.
And because we're talking about a player who only needs a fraction of an inch and a fraction of a second to cleanly strike the ball, that split second where the defender loses visual contact is all the time a lethal finisher requires.
It's all over.
It is biomechanically impossible for the defender to shift their heavy body weight forward, realize they've been deceived, stop their momentum, and reverse backward in time to block the shot. The physics just don't allow it.
What stands out to you here, listening to this? For me, it's the ultimate lesson in working smarter. It's not about expending maximum energy. It's about applying energy at the exact right microsecond. But moving on from that, this lethal movement is so successful that the text says opposition managers are forced to physically alter their defensive structures to stop him.
They have no choice.
Right, which triggers a massive secondary tactical advantage for Portugal. Here's where it gets really interesting. Because his individual microscopic box movements have a macroscopic impact on the entire pitch.
Huge impact.
The text calls this the gravity effect. His sheer reputation, combined with this lethal efficiency we just described, creates a tactical black hole on the field.
The gravity effect is the natural mathematical consequence of everything we've just discussed regarding his blindside drifting.
I explain that math.
Because opposing teams know that leaving a defender in a one-on-one matchup against him in the box is a guaranteed goal, they are forced to change the equation. They cannot afford to leave a single center back isolated. Therefore, they are forced to commit a double marker to him at almost all times. 2 elite defenders, entirely focused on one stationary player.
And that simple piece of arithmetic, 2 defenders minus 1 forward, completely unlocks the rest of the pitch.
Exactly. If we look at the broader tactical map, the gravity effect becomes a nightmare for the opposition.
Why is that?
When you tie up 2 of your best defenders on one stationary forward deep inside the penalty box, you are inherently vacating critical space somewhere else on the field.
Right, there's a hole somewhere.
And in this specific system, that space opens up directly at the edge of the 18-yard box.
Which just happens to be the exact real estate occupied by world-class midfielders. The text specifically names Bruno Fernandes and Bernardo Silva.
Some of the best in the world.
Right. Because 2 defenders are trapped in that gravitational pull deep down near the penalty spot, Bruno and Bernardo are suddenly finding themselves completely unmarked.
Totally free.
Yeah, 20 yards from goal, with the ball at their feet and a clear sight line to the net.
It's a defensive disaster.
But wait, I have to push back on the logic here.
Sure, go ahead.
If we know this, surely the opposing managers know this. They watch the same tape.
Of course they do.
So if every team in the world knows he's essentially operating as a massive decoy to free up Bruno and Bernardo at the edge of the box, why don't they just stop double marking him?
Yeah.
Like, why not just play him one-on-one, trust your best center back to handle the blindside drifting, and keep your midfield tight to stop those long-range shots?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you'll see why that is the ultimate tactical dilemma for any opposing manager.
Yeah.
It is a classic damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario.
Okay, walk me through it.
Let's play out your hypothetical. Say the manager decides they've had enough of Bruno Fernandes getting open shots. They drop the double mark.
Right.
They leave one defender on the striker to free up a man to go cover the edge of the box. What immediately happens? We revert right back to the Saudi League blueprint. You have now isolated the most lethal finisher in history, one-on-one, inside the 6-yard box.
Ooh.
His conversion rate, in that exact scenario, will destroy your team in a matter of minutes.
Oh, I see the trap now. If you drop the double mark to stop the midfield, he just scores 5 goals on you from point-blank range because no single defender can stop his cognitive movement.
Precisely. So, terrified of that outcome, the manager reinstates the double mark.
Right.
But the absolute second they do, Portugal's edge-of-the-box shooters, Bruno, Bernardo, Rafael Leao, they get completely free, uncontested long-range finishes again.
It's brilliant.
Martinez has designed a structural system where all roads lead to a high-probability Portuguese scoring chance. The opposition has to choose their poison, and mathematically, neither option is survivable.
So the gravity effect treats this massive advantage when Portugal has the ball.
Yes.
But I'm looking at the clock here, thinking about a 90-minute game. When Portugal loses the ball, doesn't having a stationary 41-year-old anchor completely destroy their ability to press?
It is absolutely the biggest criticism leveled at any aging forward, and the text addresses this directly. We transition from the in-possession box mechanics to the out-of-possession structural tactics.
Right, the stamina question.
Yeah.
Every pundit, every critic looks at a 41-year-old forward and asks the exact same question. Can he press for 90 minutes? Can he lead the line in a modern high-intensity defensive system?
And Roberto Martinez's answer to that question is as simple as it is brilliant. He doesn't need to.
Which sounds almost blasphemous in modern football, where every single player from the striker to the goalkeeper is expected to defend from the front.
It does, but they make it work.
Yeah, the text explains how they've modified the defensive structure to accommodate this.
They have built an incredibly specific, custom-tailored ecosystem around him. The tactical blueprint relies entirely on Portugal's young, incredibly energetic midfield engine room.
Right, the kids do the running.
Exactly. The rest of the team is tasked with pressing aggressively, closing down passing lanes, and doing the grueling physical work of winning the ball back. They are intentionally and explicitly relieving him of this defensive duty.
So while the midfield is running themselves into the ground to win the ball back, what is he actually doing?
Well, the text says he becomes the transition catalyst.
Right. Instead of dropping deep into his own half to help defend, he deliberately occupies the strategic gap between the opposition's midfield line and their defensive line. He just hovers in that dead space, waiting.
And this is where the energy preservation we talked about earlier, the deceptive economy, pays its ultimate dividend.
Oh, I see.
Think about the physiological reality of the game. When Portugal's pressing engine finally wins the ball back, the players look up, and what do they see?
He's already gone.
They see him, already mid-sprint, exploiting that gap. Because he hasn't wasted a single ounce of energy chasing down opposing fullbacks for the last 10 minutes, his fast-twitch muscle fibers are entirely fresh.
He is executing these explosive, short-distance bursts. The absolute moment possession changes hands.
The contrast on the pitch is startling. Think about the opposing defenders in that exact moment of transition.
Yeah, they're probably out of breath.
Exactly. They have pushed up the pitch, they are expanding their shape, trying to support their own team's attack, and suddenly, unexpectedly, the ball is turned over.
Right.
They are caught flat-footed, totally out of position, and they suddenly have a completely rested, explosive striker bearing down on them at maximum velocity.
The source material notes that his physical condition is meticulously honed by elite recovery methods, specifically designed to allow him to maintain that singular physiological trait, the explosive short-distance burst.
Yes.
So the lack of defensive pressing isn't framed as a weakness born of old age. It's framed as a deliberate, highly calculated offensive tactic.
That is a crucial distinction the analysts make. It is not that he physically can't run. It is that the managerial team has mathematically determined his running is exponentially more valuable in the offensive transition than it is in the defensive press.
Weaponizing energy preservation.
Exactly. Energy preservation is weaponized.
So what does this all mean? If we step back and look at the whole picture, it's the ultimate specialization.
Yeah.
Portugal has essentially split their squad down the middle. They have separated the team into a highly functional, aggressive, defensive pressing engine and an isolated, fully rested, hyper-efficient strike mechanism just waiting to be triggered.
It is a fascinating division of labor.
But a structural setup like that, where 10 players do all the grueling, unglamorous defensive running so one single player can execute the killing blow, that requires an immense, almost unprecedented level of psychological buy-in from the rest of the squad.
Oh, massive buy-in.
Right. The team has to believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that if they do the running, he will deliver the goal.
And that reality leads us perfectly into the final dimension of this deep dive.
Okay, let's go there.
How does his mere presence hold this incredibly specialized asymmetric system together? We are moving from the physical and tactical to the purely psychological.
Right.
Because the text argues that his mental profile and his physical aura actually alter the geometry of the pitch just as much as his physical movement does.
Football is played as much in the mind of the players as it is on the grass.
100%.
And the document highlights a concept we can categorize as psychological warfare and pitch manipulation. It starts long before the whistle even blows, right in the tunnel before the teams walk out.
Yeah, the tunnel intimidation.
The text literally brings up his physical profile. I mean,
Right.
he is an imposing 6'2".
Okay.
And you combine that sheer size with the undeniable aura of being the sport's greatest ever goal scorer.
Right.
Standing next to that in the tunnel, knowing what he has accomplished over 2 decades, it has a tangible, measurable effect on an opponent's nervous system.
And that tunnel intimidation translates directly into a massive tactical advantage the moment the game kicks off.
How so?
The text details how the fear of his physical capabilities, specifically his legendary aerial ability and leap, forces opposition defenses to subconsciously or even consciously alter their entire team shape.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Defenses will naturally play a much deeper line against him. They are literally too afraid to play a high defensive line and risk being beaten by a ball over the top or a towering back post header.
Wow. So simply by existing on the pitch and having the history that he has, he is physically pushing the opposition's entire defensive line backward toward their own goal.
Exactly.
Which means before the game even starts, the opposition is automatically conceding crucial midfield territory to Portugal.
Yes.
They are giving Portugal's midfield more space to operate purely out of fear of what the striker might do if they push up.
This raises an important question, though.
What's that?
How much of modern tactics is actually dictated by sports psychology and fear, rather than just whiteboard X's and O's?
That's a great point.
We spend so much time in football analysis focusing on formations and pressing triggers and spatial mapping, but here is a clear, undeniable example of pure fear actively dictating where an entire defensive line is positioned.
It is a profound point. The whiteboard assumes all players are emotionless robots executing a computer program perfectly.
Which they aren't.
No. But introduce the historical weight, the aura of a legendary goal scorer into the equation, and suddenly the rigid geometries you drew on the board warp and bend under the intense pressure of human psychology.
Absolutely.
And internally, for his own team, that aura serves an equally vital function, right? The text calls it his ultimate big game mentality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because this is a player who has won literally everything there is to win in world football multiple times over.
Yeah.
The document points out how his commanding voice in the dressing room stabilizes what is actually a very young, highly talented, but perhaps inexperienced Portuguese squad. When you get to these suffocatingly high-pressure knockout games of a World Cup, that level of lived experience is just invaluable.
He acts as a massive psychological shield for the rest of the team.
A total shield.
He naturally absorbs all the media pressure, all the opposing fans' vitriol, all the global expectations. Because the spotlight is so blindingly focused on his every move, it allows his younger teammates to step onto the pitch and play freely.
Yeah, without the crippling fear of making a mistake on the world stage, they know he is carrying the weight.
Which brings all of these incredibly complex tactical strands together perfectly. We are looking at the final completed piece of the 2026 puzzle.
It's an amazing puzzle.
It really is. It is the perfect, seamless merging of unparalleled box instinct, that back-to-back golden boot sharpness that was proven and refined in the Saudi League, and age-defying physical discipline that allows for those devastating explosive bursts in transition, and an immense psychological weight that literally bends opposing defenses to his will.
And the conclusion drawn by the analysts is chillingly clear.
Yeah.
He only needs half a chance, a fraction of a second of lost visual contact to completely rewrite history.
Incredible. Let's take a moment to recap the incredible journey we've been on with this deep dive, because we've covered a lot of ground today.
We sure have.
We started by stripping away our past assumptions and looking at the brilliant concept of deceptive economy. We saw how a player touching the ball fewer than 20 times a game isn't out of form, but is actually executing a highly calculated strategy, concentrating every single action inside the legal zone of the penalty box.
Right.
We zoomed in on the granular physics of blindside drifting, seeing exactly how his micro movements and decoy runs completely break down the cognitive processing of elite defenders.
From that microscopic level, we pull back to see the macroscopic impact.
The gravity effect.
Exactly. We examine the gravity effect, where his mere presence creates a tactical black hole, drawing guaranteed double markers and structurally unlocking the edge of the box for world-class midfielders like Bruno Fernandes to operate freely. And we saw how Roberto Martinez brilliantly solved the stamina equation by utilizing him strictly as a transition catalyst, essentially separating the squad into a high-functioning defensive engine and a fully rested, hyper-lethal strike mechanism.
And finally, we looked at the invisible game, the psychological warfare. How his physical aura and ultimate big game mentality physically pushed defensive lines deeper into their own half, while simultaneously shielding his young teammates from the crushing pressure of the world stage.
Right.
For you listening to this, the core takeaway here goes so far beyond just football tactics. True mastery, whether you are on a football pitch, sitting in a boardroom, or managing the trajectory of your own career, often looks like doing less.
Yeah, that's so true.
But it's about doing that less with absolute cold-blooded efficiency and perfect positioning. It's knowing exactly where you need to be and exactly when to expend your valuable energy for maximum impact.
And that leaves us with a truly fascinating, almost philosophical idea to consider as we wrap up.
Let's hear it.
If an athlete can remain the ultimate, undeniable global threat at age 41, achieving this strictly through hyper-specialized tactical movement and pure mental dominance, rather than relying on raw physical stamina.
Yeah.
Are we fundamentally misunderstanding the prime of human performance?
Oh, wow.
Could we see a near future where elite athletes intentionally shed their expansive physical games much earlier in their careers, purely to begin mastering the cognitive geometry of their sport long before their bodies even begin to fade?
That is an incredible thought to leave on. Could the mind replace the legs a decade earlier than we ever thought possible? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking for those hidden mechanics in the world around you. Keep questioning the accepted narratives, and we'll see you next time.